Hey everybody, welcome to the Age of Quarantine. Been having some issues with the internet here, but it looks like we are all set. So I'm going to try to let everybody know what's going on. Um, this storm here on the East Coast really fucked everything up. So thanks for being patient. Tonight we have a 2 hour special with Sick of It All. They have a new book out called The Blood and the Sweat. I'm going to start with Pete Koller for 1 hour, and then I'm going to be joined by Lou Koller for the second hour. Looks like Pete's ready to join me, so I'm going to get him on the screen now. And we're going to talk about Sick of It All and the life of the Koller brothers growing up in Queens and what brought them to where they are today, which is they're one of the most important punk rock and hardcore bands of all time and one of the most well-known in the genre and such a big deal for this entire subculture, not just in New York, but worldwide. Thank you to everybody for being patient with me. Going to get Pete on screen here in just 1 second.
Hey.
Hey, Pete. Dude, so sorry about that.
That's all right. Can
this
you hear
damn
me?
internet, man. Yeah, I can't. Well, it looks like your internet was a little weird there for a second. It was kind of like freezing, but
Yeah.
I think I can see
There's
it.
a storm coming here too, so.
Oh my God. Well, I want to thank you for being patient with me and for making time to chat this evening because it's a really big deal for me because Sick of It All is the first hardcore band I ever saw, but also for the fans and everybody watching because it's a 2 hour special and we're going to talk about the book and all things Sick of It All related. So
Nope.
yeah, if that's
All
cool
right.
with you, I feel like we should. Cool, man. We'll hope that the internet is on our side tonight. How you doing tonight, man?
Everything's cool. I've been waiting to do this.
Very cool, man. And obviously, the pandemic has affected your guys' ability to go on tour. What have you been doing to keep busy and stay creative this whole time?
Well, I've been writing some music. Obviously, we're pushing the book, and we got the book all together and getting it out. The band, we recorded some stuff, over the internet, and we made put out pretty soon. I'm not sure when. I think they're all done. They're all like mixed together and all that stuff. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but soon.
It's great that you guys are staying productive and trying to write stuff and everything. And it's a great time to get music out. And you guys have always sang about important issues, and we need new Sick of It All more today than we ever have. The new book, The Blood and the Sweat, is out this week. Obviously, it's only been out for a few days, but have you gotten some feedback from fans or friends or family? What's it been like so far?
One cool thing is if you brought the book from Generation Records, they actually immediately sent it out to you. So a lot of people have had it for a little while. And I have a couple of people that told me that they immediately read the whole thing because it was, it's a pretty fun book. Our lives growing up, little kids, and there's some cool pictures in there and stuff like that. And the first tour we've been on, and the first time we went to Europe, and all sorts of wacky stuff.
Absolutely. And you guys grew up in Flushing, Queens, correct?
Yeah.
I don't want to give too much away, but we'll talk a little bit about a couple things that are, it's going to be tough to not give away some stuff. I mean, we'll no pun intended. We'll try to scratch the surface. But can you talk about what it was like growing up in Flushing, Queens in the 70s and 80s, some of the pros and cons, how it affected who you are today?
Well, actually, I just started watching that show on Netflix, Fear City, and it's about the mafia in the 70s and stuff. And it was actually pretty cool seeing all the old police cars and stuff because that's like all gritty and dirty like that. But Flushing, Queens was great because growing up with all my brothers, I have 3 brothers, Lou, Matt, and Steve. And me and Lou were always attached and whatever. But, we always had people to play with. went to the school that was like 4 houses away from our house. So we just had to walk there, and we walked home for lunch and stuff. Um, it was a fun place, you know. We had our own
Yeah.
backyard, you know, and we have very nice and cool parents. So my dad
I
started
was gonna ask.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he would, you know, save up all year to take us out on like road trips for the summertime. We'd go away for a week, you know, upstate New York or something like that. And they always had stuff like that for us. You know, Christmas there was always, and he, you know, they did their best, and we learned from that. So I hope I'm being a good dad too. You know.
Yeah, you guys, I mean, you guys have been a band for 30 plus years, which we'll talk about. I want to ask a little bit about how you even keep going you know, 30 years as a hardcore band, which is not common. You guys, in the book, it says that if agnostic fronts are the godfathers of New York hardcore, you guys are the grand masters, and I couldn't agree more. Um, that's a great quote from the book. At what point did you realize that music was something meaningful to you, and what were some of the artists that were attractive to you during that time?
What I kind of missed the beginning of your question. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it looks like both of us are having some internet issues, but I think it's good enough to sort of get everyone engaged here. So, at what point in your life did you realize music was important to you, and what were those
Oh, okay.
artists that were impactful?
Well, actually, going back to our parents, there was always music playing, like on those road trips, or when my dad would be, you know, car and fixing the car or doing something around the house. He always had CBS FM on, playing, you know, like doo-wop and all the oldies. And if my mom was cleaning the house, she put on like country music, or she put on, because she's from France,
Right.
so she would put on all French music like Edith Piaf. There was always music, and we were always attracted to music. We always were listening to stuff. And like when we first started really getting into it is when we discovered Kiss, you know.
Hell
And
yeah.
to us, you know, because me and Lou love comic book movies. I love horror comic books. I love all that stuff. And seeing Kiss when you're a kid, it's like, this is fucking great. This is, you know,
Everything rolled into one.
this music, and the guy spits blood, you know. So
Hell yeah.
so we got, you know, our mom bought us Kiss Alive 1, and
Hmm.
from there it was just like, wow, this is so great. And then we just, you know, kept going, you know. And of course then we discovered that was the end of everything. All I wanted to do was hear music and get it heavier and meaner, and that's how we actually started off.
And that, at what point did guitar enter your life, and how did you actually learn how to play?
uh, Play, I jump around a lot, which
Yeah.
throws everybody off thinking I'm playing pretty well. But this is the part from the book. One Christmas, I got an acoustic guitar for Christmas, and I have to tell you, I hated school about it, and I hated learning and all that shit because there was someone telling me what to do. So my parents got me the book, and they got me Roy Clark's big notebook, How to Play Guitar.
Okay.
And I hated it because it was like learning. They gave me, you know, a book to study. So I was like, fuck that.
Right.
I kind of didn't mess with the guitar for years until I started, you know, listening to, you know, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, or, you know, GBH and stuff like that. And then I was like, well, you know, this is pretty cool. Then we started going to shows. I was like, wow, I could, you know, mimic those bar chords or whatever. So then I started, you know, learning how to make a bar chord. And then instead of learning how to play an agnostic front song or a Priest song or something like that, I just started. And I think the first song I wrote was My Life. And
Oh
then
wow.
the
Okay.
second song I wrote was Friends Like You, which is pretty much the same song, just played in a different box action. So,
Yeah. And those are still staples in the set,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is amazing.
Yes.
Um, I want to apologize because there's a delay every once in a while, so I don't know if that's happening for you or anybody else.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Every time you're about to ask me a question, the beginning of the question is wiped out.
oh my God, it's this damn storm, man.
Yeah,
Let's do our best, I guess, and hope that it's working
yeah,
for
yeah.
everybody.
Whatever.
Um, so you do have a whole bunch of you have other siblings, as you mentioned. When did hardcore and punk rock enter your life, and what made it particularly appealing to you and your brother? And did are your other siblings into hardcore and punk rock also, or is it just the two of you?
Our brother Matt was the one who actually started bringing in like Discharge, Anti Nowhere League, Exploited to us.
Yeah.
Like we were really into Black Sabbath. Like the Wizard of Oz came out and all that good stuff. Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, Anvil, all that stuff, right? And so then Matt started being like, "Oh, you should check this out." So he would buy a GBH record, and I immediately loved GBH
Yeah.
because it's simple and it's aggressive. It's fun music. And another thing, I could play that. I can't play
Yeah.
an Iron Maiden riff or Iron Maiden guitar solo, but I could play GBH stuff. So that's another thing that got me into it more. So our brother Matt started getting us, but Lou, he would always take it further. He would start looking, oh, let's check out this Discharge record. Let's, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it was always like, I would always follow Lou's lead. And this is in the book too, because Lou always had money somehow and he would buy records. And I
Okay.
never had any money. Cool, that's a good record.
Right, right, right. I also wanted to ask, about the first shows that you went to, because I mean, as a fan, it's very obvious that Agnostic Front, obviously, and a negative approach had a big impact on you. You mentioned GBH, but what were maybe elaborate on what some of your first shows were, how you even found, talk about your first shows and the first records and all that stuff.
Okay. Well, my very first concert I ever went to was in 1979, and I saw at Madison Square Garden. So that was my first time ever going to see a band, okay? But then after that, like my first hardcore punk shows, the first time we ever went to CBGB's was to see Agnostic Front
Wow.
play. And when we went down there, we all had longer hair and stuff like that. Immediately took me was that how everybody, they didn't give a shit what you look like. They didn't care. This was before all the real stupid stuff started happening.
Yeah.
This is when the scene would have, all different punk hardcore bands on the same bill. So that day, we saw Agnostic Front play. Stigma was like, hey, oh, it's great to see you guys come down. I never seen you here before. And then we see, that's the fucking guy on stage.
Right.
And he just came up to us and he just greeted us, So I immediately was like, this is the place for me. And I always use this quote when we're talking about stuff. It's like, when we were kids, our parents made us go to church every Sunday. But after that first CB show, I went to CBGB's every Sunday.
Yeah.
That was my new religion.
Hey, Pete, the sound cut out for some of us over here when you were talking about the Madison Square Garden show, but what band was that you saw at MSG?
Yes.
Did you say it was Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is so far off from like what I would imagine your first concert would be.
But 1979, though. That's a long time ago.
That's funny. The owner of St. Vitus would love that answer because his favorite band is Yes. So everybody that missed that, go ahead. What era is that Agnostic Front when you're seeing them? Is that Victim in Pain, or is that what year is
Victim
that?
of I think Victim of Pain just came out. I
Okay.
think that's what it was. Yeah. That might have actually it might have been the Victim in Pain record release show in New York.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
wild.
I think that's what that was.
And like, who are some of your guitar heroes when you were learning and coming up with your riffs?
Uh well, it was all hardcore stuff, you know. Vinny Stigma,
Right.
you know. He keeps it simple and he's a real entertainer. You don't have to be
Yeah.
this great guitar player, but it's great seeing him because he knows how to work it, you know. And that's what I try to do myself. It's like I take my basic stuff that I know and just go with it.
Yeah, I can see that influence in how you kind of carry yourself on stage too, because you play, real fast and aggressive, but you're always running around and keeping everyone engaged in the crowd, which is very Stigma. Um, Now, how how did your family react? You said they're really cool to you and your brother getting into a band, and obviously, like, you pursued it as a career. How did your family react to that?
My mom loved it, and she always was like, if you're gonna do something, just give it the Koller effort, you know, just
Okay.
push and do it. It's a great work ethic. You know, if I'm digging a ditch, it's gonna be the best ditch you ever seen. And I'm gonna dig it till it's, you know, it's done. But same thing as being in the band. She was for it as long as we did our best. My dad is still to this day asking when we're going to get real jobs, you know, because he's just worried about our
Wow.
future, you know. He was
Yeah.
some at some points we started making very good money. And he was like, "Well, how long is this going to last? You know, you guys have something to fall back on, you know." And it's been 34 years. And one thing we always say is like,
Unbelievable.
are we, you know, if this pandemic keeps going on, me and Lou are going to have to become janitors somewhere.
Right.
But
Right.
you know, and it's like, who's going to hire a 54-year-old guy at an entry level job? The boss is going to be 18 years old.
Well, let's get into, like, I mean, like you said, the band has been around for so long. I'm seeing some comments. Oh, and by the way, happy birthday. We should have started there. So happy birthday to you. Hope you had a
Thank you, thank
wonderful
you.
one. And yeah, got a little nervous in the beginning because of what was going on with the internet. So I totally skipped that. And before I keep going, I should mention we were going to do this in person at Generation Records, and because of
Yeah,
the pandemic, this is how we're doing it. So thank you to everybody for tuning in and watching. I see there's people from all over the world, in South America and all over the country here. So thanks for tuning in. And talk about how Sick of It All started. And was it your first band?
basically, our
It's crazy.
band, and it was the same. Okay, the original Sick of It All that played the first show in at the Right Track Inn in Long Island.
Mm.
It was me, Lou, my friend Mark McNeely, and a guy named David Lamb on drums. And I think that lasted one show. It's left. So then we got Richie Cipriano and Armand in the band. So
Shout out to
and
Richie. I love Richie
oh,
and
Richie's the
Armand. Yeah,
best.
yeah.
I don't know about Armand, but Richie's the best.
And how did you meet those guys?
You mean Richie and Armand? When you came from Queens, if you were into punk rock or heavy metal, you knew all the people that were into punk rock or heavy metal. And Armand went to high school with us, and Richie went to the high school, and we all kind of knew each other just because of being into the music. And way before the band, we were all friends,
Right.
you know, like a bunch of goofy guys, you know, not having girlfriends most of the time because we're just long
Classic.
hair,
Yeah.
dirty, having Motorhead and Black Sabbath. drinking beer in the park kind of dudes. And but then, we started getting into a scene where we saw that we could actually be a part of it. And I always wanted to be in a band.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm wasting away like, oh, I hate this. Well, how great would it be to be in a band,
Absolutely.
And now
Absolutely.
it works.
Yeah, it certainly worked out. And what were those first shows like for you? How quickly was it that you guys sort of caught on to the New York scene and became regular staples?
Well, the first two shows were actually at the Right Track Inn in Long Island.
Right.
And like when we played, it was our friends dancing in front of us, our friend,
Of course.
in the pit, Richie was in the pit, all those guys. So, and then it was when we recorded the demo tape, and our friend Dwayne at Some Records, it used to be down the block from CB's, a few blocks away from CB's. And anytime he walked in, he was like, you got to check out this demo. You got to get this demo. So we started selling tons of demos. We couldn't make them, like we would make them in our parents' basement, with the dubbing tape thing.
Right.
And we'd Xerox the copies and whatever. So all week we'd make them, bring them to the next Sunday matinee, and they'd all sell out. So then people were really getting into it. So then we kept playing more shows, and you get to play CBs. And that was the biggest thing we ever wanted to do,
Absolutely. Sorry, you had cut out for a second. I love that, and it makes sense because Sick of It All from day one has always been kind of just like all the good things of hardcore sort of rolled into one. You never really faltered and tried to be anything else. So I could see through that time, even having not been there, there was crossover, which never really happened to you guys. There was the youth crew thing. And you guys were kind of just doing your own thing, keeping it real. And I'm sure that was really refreshing for everybody from all walks of life.
Yeah. I see when we got into hardcore, it was because like when we went down there, we were guys with long hair, and we noticed that nobody cared, until later on when it started getting bigger and bigger. But then people started making all these little groups, this group and that group, the straight edge guys and this and that. And we never really said we were anything but a hardcore band.
Right. And you were always friends with everybody.
Yeah.
And a reputation for being always like a really, all really nice guys, which, I later on realized as I got to know all the different members of the band. I really know Craig and Richie and Armand the best. So this is me getting to know the Koller brothers finally tonight. But
wait. Let me correct you. It's not Koller. It's Koller.
Koller. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A lot of people say that. When my Lucy Koller, she's like, no, it's Koller, like roller.
Okay, that's a good way to put it then, to make sure that we all get it right. The band eventually really started getting big in the 90s, but what was the first point, that EP you put out, was that the same, that was the demo the same thing as the EP that came out on Revelation Records?
It's basically the same thing. I think we re-recorded it for Revelation, but I think it's the same songs.
Okay, gotcha. And then at what point did you realize that the band was really starting to make a name for itself outside of New York?
I missed the last part of the question. Sorry.
Sorry, man. It's okay. At what point did you realize that Sick of It All was making a name for itself outside of the New York area?
Well, when we started playing like Boston, and the only thing we ever heard about Boston was like, there's this rivalry, and you're supposed to hate all the people from Boston, and Boston hates you, and if you go there, there's going to be this war, and they were there just for the show. Nobody cared.
Right.
It was fun. So then from there, it's other places. And then our friend Howie Abrams, who we actually known for years before we were, Sick of It All.
Shout out to Howie, who co-wrote the book with you.
Yeah, like we're all guys just from Queens that would always get on the same train to watch the shows and then ride home. And then, hey, those guys are into it too. So then Howie got into the side of records and record company and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, after a while, we were playing around, we're getting bigger and bigger. And then Howie, luckily, had the chance In Effect Records at the time. First it was Combat, but then they changed the name to In Effect. And that's when we started doing, like, we actually got an Exodus tour, a small one of the East Coast. And that was great because it never go to a hardcore show ever. And
Yeah.
they loved it. They obviously we didn't dress like metal guys and we didn't look like metal guys. So when we came on stage, people were kind of apprehensive. Like, who the fuck are these guys? With
Right.
flat tops and shit. So, but those shows, it always started with everyone away from the stage. And as soon as we started playing, people really got into it. And that really helped us out and pushing us into a bigger audience, a different audience.
Right. And you guys, sorry, is this working? You guys have always had really diverse bills, which I think has a lot to do with why the band has become so accessible to so many different types of people. You mentioned the Exodus tour, and I know back then Sepultura took you out, and Napalm Death, and Sacred
Yeah.
Reich. And it sounds like it was all cool, and all the metal people were into it. When you eventually were picking bands to go on tour with you, it seemed like you were always trying to keep it diverse. Maybe talk a little bit about that. I know we're jumping around, but you've taken out Snapcase and Hot Water Music, Indecision. Is diversity on the bills something that's very important for you guys when you bring
Yeah,
things
yeah.
up?
I mean, when I like, if I go see Madball, I don't want to see standard Madballs before them. I want to see the
Right.
guys. I want to see the real deal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and we always put bands on the bill that we like, you know? So it's not necessarily everyone's going to sound like us.
Absolutely, yeah. And the one thing everyone always has in common is it's got some kind of punk rock roots, at least, kind of tying it all together,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
always important. Yeah. Um, so obviously you guys ended up getting really big, and you ended up on Relativity and East West. Can you talk about what it was like during that time, transitioning from being kind of an underground band, and then suddenly you're playing big stages, big festivals. You're on Beavis and Butthead. We'll talk about Step Down in a little bit because that's a very important song. But talk about that transition and what that was like for you, going from A to Z.
Hey, the way I handled it was just like, let's just keep, there was never a plan. The only thing, like Lou always says, the only thing we wanted to do was play CBs.
Yeah.
So we already did that. But it just kept going, and we didn't say, oh, okay, at this big, or we have to do this. We just kept going. It didn't matter. It didn't matter if we were on the biggest label or the smallest label. We're just still going to keep playing. It's like you said, we went from Relativity, Revelation to Sony, and now Century Media. Doesn't matter. We're still going to, if we're putting it out ourselves, we're going to put it out, and it's still going to be our style of music, So
Absolutely.
I never really had a plan of, oh, we have to do this, At this time in our lives, we're going to have to be like this. So.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit because, around that time that Sick of It All was starting to get real popular in the 90s, there was a lot of experimentation happening in the scene. You had Quicksand, Orange 9mm, Into Another. Everyone was, really trying something new. You guys stayed the course. You never took any crazy left turns. Did you, what do you attribute to staying focused and not faltering to like any trends,
When I write as if I was in the crowd, would this make me want to go nuts? sing along, stage dive, or whatever. This is coming from back in the day when you weren't told that this is the time where you stage dive. You stage dive when you felt it. Okay?
Yeah.
It went crazy because you felt it. And that's how I write music.
Absolutely.
It's like if I hear the riff in my head and I'm like all day, it's like, bugging the shit out of me, then I know it's a good song. If writing a riff and tomorrow I don't know what it is, it wasn't meant to be, So it's all about
Yeah.
feeling with me.
Hey, how you doing? We got a cameo.
That's Lucy.
Hey, Lucy. How are you? Thanks for letting your dad spend some time with me tonight. And shout out to a couple people commenting. Shout out to Toby. We got to get you on the show. Shout out to Todd from H2O, Sid the Kid, who helped me out a couple weeks ago at Stigma. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We are talking to Pete right now, and eventually we're going to get Lou on the screen. Thanks to everyone for bearing with us with this internet issues. And if you missed the first half, this is going to end up on the Revolver Magazine YouTube channel later on. So we don't have to spend too much time on this, but when you got when you started getting into the major labels and all that stuff, there were all these crazy things happening in New York. There's the infamous Crucial Chaos situation with Born Against. Can you talk about, like, was it really tough for you guys dealing with like a wrath of people criticizing you? Was it that bad, or was it really kind of blown out of proportion? Like, there's a lot of myths and exaggerations of what really went on, especially during that interview in that room for people that weren't in there. But maybe you could talk about it a little.
I really don't remember much about it, and if we did get all uppity, yelling and screaming, who knows? It's probably just and trying to be tough and trying to look cool, most likely, on my part, most likely. But nowadays, when I think of it, it was all silly, and I couldn't give a shit what anyone is saying, like, oh, you sold out, you did this. What is selling out, It's like, none of that really means anything to me at all. It's like, this is my life. Look what myself, Lou, Armand, and Craig have created from a bar chord. This is what we created. 34 years. We toured. People know who we are. And it's like, I couldn't care less what someone is going to say about me,
Absolutely. And you've been playing, you've been writing anthems for decades that are still relevant today, like Injustice System and Just Look Around. They resonate with a lot of things that are happening right now. And it's amazing. The first time, so for me, and for probably many people, because Scratch the Surface was such a standout record for you, I saw you guys on the Scratch the Surface tour at Roseland with Helmet. That was the first time I ever saw a hardcore band, and it was such a life-altering moment. We talked a little bit about the success. You were on Headbangers Ball, getting regular airplay. There was an episode of Beavis and Butthead you guys were on, and there was Warped Tour. That whole period, I want to talk about the song Step Down, because it had a lot to do with why the band blew up. Can you talk about writing that song and what it did for your career?
Which one? I didn't hear the song.
Sorry, Step Down.
Step Down, yeah. Well, at that point, everybody was Quicksand styled music, Orange 9 style music, which is great, and I love it all. Or you were writing super heavy metal that people said was hardcore. So we came up with something to sing along, and it instantly catches on because it's a fun song to sing along to. It's fun to dance to. We laid out the dances for you,
Yeah, whose idea was that?
I think that was like a joint effort of the band. A lot of the stuff, it's like one guy will have a concept and then everyone adds to it or takes away, whatever, it actually worked out really well. And being on the major label at the time, there was actually money to actually record something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with Built to Last too, because those were both on East West before you switched to a different label. I'm sure the experience during that time was pretty insane. The
Yeah.
studios you were going to.
And actually being on the major label when the record was released in Europe, that's one of the reasons we're so big in Europe.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
because AD, he said there was like billboards for Scratch the Surface, and no one aside from his friends even knew what hardcore was.
Yeah. Right.
And like the punk scene knew us and this and that. But then he said you would ride on the subway and there'd be a fucking Scratch the Surface billboard. So
That's insane. Yeah.
into people who didn't even know what anything was like that. So then we started getting the festivals over in Europe, and a lot of them are really mixed bills.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember what it was, but like on our stage, it was like, like Yellow Man or something like that, and of it all. And, and that's 20,000 people who've never heard of you, but then they see this explosion of energy, and they just went nuts. So from that on, it was just like people had to come see us, and built an extremely loyal fan base.
Right. And it's still loyal to this day, because if you watch any of the Sick of It All videos on YouTube of any shows in Europe, especially the festivals, they're like straight up like huge rock concerts. It's fucking unreal.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's absolutely nuts. And I love that. It's kind of like the bloodline for all the successful hardcore bands like Agnostic Front and Madball and you guys. They love it out there. I wanted to ask you about that because you guys have and there's a forward by Chris Carrabba of Dashboard Confessional, which I want to talk about in a second. But he talks about playing a festival where it was Oasis, Sick of It All, and Dashboard Confessional, which is so bizarre, but it's like that in Europe. Like, what are some of the most bizarre, or let's call it like a holy shit moment, like what are we doing here? Like, what are some of your like notable holy shit moments where you're like, this is fucking weird? How are we here playing with this?
Well, like the first festivals we ever did, it was like we played a squat, then we played like some small club show, and then Mark had us booked like on a festival, and it was like, holy shit, there's 10,000 people here. Wow, this is crazy.
Yeah.
The next day we played the Dynamo Festival, and it had to be like 80,000 plus people there. So it was like we played 2 club shows, and then this fucking thing that you never even dreamed of playing. And actually that video of that show is on YouTube. And when the intro is on, my side of the stage, all the power blows out. So we're like, it's this like huge triumphant moment. And we're like, yeah, we can't get ready. Yeah, we can't wait. And then the fucking power blows out. But nobody, like, of course we noticed. We're like, fuck. But the crowd didn't even care at all. And they went insane. And to see that many people, it's like we brought all of the merchandise for the whole tour in a truck, and it was all gone that day.
Wow.
So
that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I love that. There's a lot of great footage of a lot of hardcore bands during that time at Dynamo, whether it's you guys or Biohazard or even like Shelter.
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting time period to look at. It's kind of happening all over again right now, because hardcore, I feel, is like bigger now than it has ever been with this like great resurgence of bands. So it's cool to kind of see things kind of come full circle. And honestly, I think that New York hardcore was probably the first hardcore scene to take it to that level.
Of course.
And kind of build that.
The first scene to take it. We're the first scene to take it all over the world, not just, okay, we went to Europe. It's like, we played in Iceland, we played in Singapore, we played anywhere we've played,
Yeah.
So we heard some of our friends' bands played in crazy.
Right. the forward in the book that's written by Chris Carrabba of Dashboard Confessional, we actually published it in Revolver last week. It's great, and it's really cool because it's outside of the box. People won't expect it, but the way, the stories that he told about what Sick of It All meant to him and his relationship with you guys is super interesting. Can you talk about your relationship with Chris and whose idea it was to have him come on board and do that?
Well, the great thing, of course, we wanted Jimmy Gestapo or Vinny Stigma to write something or maybe something together, but that's really expected, and this actually shows you that so many things came out of hardcore.
Yeah.
It's his music is nothing like us, but it inspired him to do what he wanted to do.
Right.
That's what it's about. It's not about, hey, I'm going to get a haircut just like Pete and do the same shit he does.
Right.
It's like, who the fuck wants that? I don't.
That's fucking rad.
It shows you that he took something that was inside of him and that he loves his style of music, and he brought it, and the guy's great. I'm actually a fan of Dashboard Conventional,
Yeah.
and I'm glad. I don't know who set it up, Howie had something to do with it, but
yeah.
but I'm so glad that he was willing to do it.
Now that story, I don't want to give away too much, but the story he told was super rad. I mean, the book is filled with stories, but I'll talk a little bit about that section, which is that Chris Carrabba is backstage at a festival that he's playing with Sick of It All, and he saw you walking around, but he also saw the Gallagher brothers from Oasis walking around and didn't really care. He was more freaked out that you were there. When you sat next to him and spoke to him, did you have any idea who he was when you sat next to him and spoke to him?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I actually remember seeing him in catering just before he came over to me. And I was like, oh shit, that's that guy from Dash. So then we just started talking, and he told us, that we were inspired him back in the day, and he brought up the story that he told about Lou.
Mm-hmm. Yep, which we'll get into with Lou. Yeah.
Yeah. It was cool, and it's.
I love it. That's fucking awesome.
Just being backstage at those big festivals is all the people you get to meet, and they're cool when they treat you as a peer, because we're all just people in bands.
Right.
I could show anybody how to play guitar like I do.
Right.
We're just guys in bands, so I am not better than the person setting up the stage. I'm not better than the person who paid to get in. So that's what I liked about him, and everyone's just talking like all the people who think they're super fancy. They don't talk to you or whatever. Their roadies don't talk to you because they think they're rock star roadies.
Yeah. We've seen a lot of that. I mean, okay, so it looks like we're getting to the point we're going to get Lou on soon. But while I have you here still, I want to ask you, can you talk about the writing and creative process? Because obviously, you are the guitar player. You're the only guitar player in the band, but you've come up with freaking so many songs over the past decades that you just pump them out. What's the writing process like for you?
It actually just all starts here. If I sit down to write a song, it'll be crap, but it has to just happen. Sitting there, at the gym or something, I start hearing something, I'll go home and play it, and then it'll change, and then if it keeps playing in my head, then it's definitely worth putting it together, and that's the only way. Let me go practice right now and try to write something. Nothing will come out. Nothing good will come out at all. It just has to come. It's all feeling.
Sorry, the internet was being weird. I think I got that. And Armand has a little bit to do with the some of the writing as well, too, right?
Of course. Nowadays, everybody writes everybody writes lyrics now too, which I was forced into the lyrics. But you got to do what you got to do, you know. So
Absolutely, I love it. You know, Sick of It All is one of those bands that even though you had some, obviously like different members in the early days, a lot of even the biggest hardcore bands out there have changed members, and the four of you, it's like one of those special things where if you took one guy out, it wouldn't be the same. And that's one of my favorite things. Everyone brings something extremely special to the table. Now, I want to ask you a question that I ask all my guests, and then we're going to try to get Lou on. But obviously, you have a very diverse music taste. You mentioned Dashboard Confessional. You've been stuck in quarantine for a while. If you had to pick 5 albums, hardcore or non-hardcore, which, by the way, everybody, if you go to the end of the book when you get it, I love this, but there's a bunch of lists of all the guys' favorite metal bands, favorite singers, favorite guitar players. So that's kind of inspired me to ask you. But if you had 5 albums that you were stuck with during the quarantine, what would they be and why?
how about I tell you what I've been listening to?
Yeah, that works.
I've been listening to a lot of Black Sabbath. All right. No particular albums though.
Yeah.
I've actually been listening to Fishbone, Truth and Soul a lot.
Oh yeah.
Every single song on that is fucking great. It's great stuff.
Yeah.
The Bad Brains Quickness. What else? I've been listening to this female singer. Her name is Grace Vanderwall.
Okay.
And it's just completely different style of music, but she's a great singer. The Plasmatics also.
Yeah. Old school. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I started, I would listen to them and then I would go on YouTube and watch videos, and it was insane the stuff that they got to do. They played on solid gold. Like a crazy outfit like that played on solid gold. And
that's so nuts.
I've actually, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy shit. And of course, I always listen to Motorhead.
Hell yeah, I hear that a lot in your playing and
Yeah.
Okay, actually, I did have one more question before we bounce over to Lou. But how the fuck do you stay in such good shape all the time? And do you have any pre-show rituals or warm-ups before you get up there? Because you've been jumping around like that, like a maniac for decades. How the fuck do you do it, man?
Every morning, I'm at the gym at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I work out for 2 hours, and then I work out again later on in the day. And so later on in the day, I'll do some cardio stuff or whatever. Before shows, I stretch and warm up for an hour before playing. Towards the end of the tour, the stretching and warming up is less and less because I'm completely burnt out towards the end of a tour.
Yeah,
so I gotta save it all for the show. But you gotta stretch,
I feel you, man. I mean, I can't imagine doing what you do for as long as you have. So I just had to ask. And kind of another dorky question before we part ways here. But you are obviously sponsored by a couple gear companies, but I always wondered, like, what equipment are you using that enables you to play as aggressively as you do and jump around? Everything still stays in tune. It sounds good, but what's the equipment breakdown here?
I have ESP guitars. I'm sponsored by ESP. They're great stuff, and anything I need, they hook me up and send me. And amp-wise, I use PVs.
Okay.
5150s or 6505s, and my pickups are EMG 81s. It'll sound heavy enough, And
yeah, hell yeah, that's great players. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, awesome, man. Well, this has been sweet. And again, man, I'm so sorry about the service that we've been dealing with. I'm glad we got through this. And
that's okay.
Yeah.
One other thing I want people to know is and get ready, but I'm not getting ready to act. I'm getting ready to feel the music. Okay? I'm not acting. I'm not doing a jump because this is going to look good for a picture. I don't give a fuck about the pictures. I feel the music we play. I feel it, okay? And like I said, I don't need to be told to stage dive. I don't need to be told to circle pit. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Because I love music.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Well, it cut off for a second, but I heard most of what you said, and I think it's so inspiring to see you guys do what you do all of these decades later, and just be as relevant. You've always been relevant since day one, and that's not something that you can say about a lot of bands. And this book couldn't come at a better time. I can't recommend it more. I'm in the middle of it, and especially during quarantine, guys, pick it up, get it from Generation Records, support local businesses, support punk rock bands, and it looks like we're getting a comment from Lou. Lou's ready for us. Pete,
All right.
Pete, thank you so much, dude. You fucking rule. You guys are all awesome. And
All right, man. Thanks.
Stay
Thanks
safe.
for doing this.
Hell yeah. Let's hope we could do it again live in front of everybody at Generation Records.
All right. See you
All
later.
right, peace out, man. Everyone hang out. We got Lou coming. Thanks for sticking around, guys. Should be seeing him pop up any second now. Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Lou. Thanks so much for joining us this evening and making time. We really appreciate it.
No problem. I would have been earlier. For some reason, when I on Instagram on my laptop, they don't have the request thing on there for some reason.
Oh, hey, no worries. Me and Pete did our best on part one of this interview, and obviously the storm fucked up a few things, but it's great to see you. And I want to say congratulations on your new book that came out on Wednesday, The Blood, the Sweat.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of it right now, and there's some gems in there.
Yeah, it's all right.
How's things been for you during this insane pandemic?
It's been good. I mean, being here has been good. Just get to spend time at home with the family, and my daughter is making me work, as in she learned to ride a bike, so I'm running after her because I don't have a bike. But band wise, it's tough. We're trying to do things like everybody. I did backups on some Black Flag cover with Tim from Rise Against and some other people, and Stick of It All recorded. We recorded about 5. We recorded 6 songs, but I still have to do vocals on one, just to see how it's going to go. But we haven't released it yet. It should be out soon. It's a couple of them at least. So
That's great.
we're trying to keep busy, but we can do all that, but there's no income. So.
Yeah. I mean, it was rough. I was just talking about watching you guys at the Bowery Electric with Agnostic Front.
Oh yeah, that was good.
One of the last shows I went to before this shit went down, and I know you were supposed to do a big tour. So hopefully, you all will be back on the road in 2021 when things are allowed.
I hope so. I mean, they're advertising the August run with Agnostic Front, but I don't think it's going to happen. I hate that.
Right.
I know our booking agent manager is probably going to be upset with me for saying that, but it's the truth. But
yeah,
I'm not getting my hopes up.
Well, hopefully we'll see you back out there because, like I was saying to Pete, Sick of It All is so relevant to what's going on right now. Like all of your lyrics, which I want to get into in a bit, are so relevant to so many things that we're seeing today. Injustice system, just look around. It's wild. Yeah. So let's go back though into your history. I'm going to ask some similar questions I asked Pete, but what was it like for you in particular growing up in Flushing, Queens in the 70s and 80s, and how did it sort of shape who you are today?
It was good, man. I mean, I love the neighborhood and all that, but there was no political correctness around, so I'd be skateboarding down the street and people yell shit out of the car at you, throw stuff at you because, hey, you skinny kid, go eat a sandwich, stupid things like that. The bullies. Yeah. But I guess that made me, I don't know, introverted, I guess. I don't know what you would call it, but it was always music that I loved. You know, our older brothers were into like, you know, Deep Purple and stuff like that, and we got into that. But I always liked the more aggressive songs, or their up tempo songs and stuff. You know.
Yeah, and you talk about that in the book a little bit. So like you
Yeah.
were into Sabbath, you were into a lot of the correct me if I'm ever misquoting you, but a lot of like the new wave of British heavy metal stuff you were into, right?
Oh yeah, that came a little later, but yeah, we loved it. I mean, we had a Scottish friend who lived around the block, and he came back one summer. He went over back home to Scotland for like a month, and he came home and he gave me Def Leppard's first album, and he had Iron Maiden's first record for himself, and he had a Motorhead patch. He didn't even know who Motorhead was. He just loved the logo. And then from those two records, we were like, you know, wow, this is amazing, you know. And Armand was, I think we met Armand shortly after that, and he really turned us on to Motorhead.
Did you say Armand, your drummer?
Armand, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and I can hear a lot of the Motorhead influence in what you guys do.
Yeah.
Especially like, well, Motorhead, as they always say, and a lot of the biographies or hardcore and punk books was like the band it was okay to like, whether you were punk or metalhead or whatever. And I believe you mentioned also that Iron Maiden, specifically with Paul Di'Anno on Killers, had a big impact on you as well.
Oh, yeah. Killers was I mean, I love the first Maiden album, but when Killers came out, I was like, wow. And we got to see them open for Judas Priest on the Point of Entry tour with Paul.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that was, whew.
I can't only imagine.
I just remember being there, and Maiden was on, and we went with our Scottish friend. His name was Jason. And as soon as Maiden came on, he jumped up on his seat. We had balcony seat, and he's screaming and yelling. And it's like biker hippie guy behind us goes, "Sit down, it's the opening band." And he just turned right at the guy and goes, "It's fucking Maiden." And the guy had no idea who Maiden was.
Where was that?
Palladium. The Palladium in New York City when they used to be around. Now it's the NYU dorms, I think.
Holy shit. And I think Killers, that was what? Was that the 70s still?
No, I think that early 80s. I don't remember, you know.
Okay.
I think it was early 80s.
And so like, you know, a lot of your lyrics deal with like social unrest and you know, things going on that you know, that are just not right in the world, which we could talk about forever. I'll try to stay on topic, but did you feel like even before you got into hardcore, was that sort of like how you felt about the world early on in life? Like, did you notice? I
think mostly when we were young, we didn't care about anything, you know. You know, it was you like any other kid. You're like, you know, yeah, you know, fucking cops, you know, blah blah. Because I could tell you stories in the '70s, hanging out with our older brothers, and they'd have keggers in the park, and the cops would come in and, you know, harass everybody, slap you around. Even if you were 12 years old, they'd smack you in the face, take all your beer and stuff, and put it in their trunk and drive to the station to have a party. That's what the '70s was like in Flushing, right. Queens, no less. You know.
But I grew up around there actually, but it was
yeah.
a different time. I'm younger, so I didn't. It was a different place.
Well, I mean, it's, you know, it was that kind of an attitude, like us against society. But I think it was mostly the influence of like English punk that got me into politics like that, you know. And it was like
stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first album was really written just by us, about us going to CB's and seeing how when we first started in the short span from, I think 84 was the first year we went. And then we wrote the album or all those songs in 87. And it was just us seeing, you know, like the demise or the scene changing. We got in there as it started to change, you know, and that's what the most of the first album was. But Injustice System was written about the incident in New Rochelle with Pete. Bullshit Justice was written about, I was watching a program about this woman who'd been attacked and all this and by her ex-husband, and she had you know, all these restraining orders and stuff, and it didn't work, and the guy eventually killed her, you know. And I was like, wow. You know, in my late teens, and that really affected me, scared the crap out of me, that, you know, that this guy had more rights than the woman, you know.
That's crazy. So you wrote Injustice System and well, a lot of this stuff when you were a teenager still.
Yeah, late teens. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever? This is kind of a weird question. I'm kind of fanning out here, but like, the way you write your lyrics is almost evergreen. Is that a conscious thing where you're like, I want to do this in a fashion where someone could read this 5 years, 10 years, 15 years later, and it's still going to be relatable? You know what I mean?
Well, one of the things, and I got this from Armand, he said, like, let's not mention specific things that'll date the song. You know, like, don't write a song that says, yo, Reagan sucks. You know, yeah, I love those songs now, but you play for somebody else, they're like, who's Reagan? You know?
Right. That's what I was getting
like,
at.
Like, what is Reagan? A lot of people don't even know what Reagan Youth means. You know?
It's fucked up, man.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So now, when did you start discovering punk and hardcore? Pete talked a little bit about it, but I want to hear it from you.
Yeah. God, it was, I don't know the exact year, but like we were into metal, we were into, and like you said, Motorhead was the transition. And then my older brother, he would bring, I remember specifically him bringing New Hope for the Wretched from Plasmatics home.
Ooh,
and he put that on and we were just like, whoa, you know? And there's like, Monkey Suit was on there. And
some really out there stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, from then I experimented. I got like a Ramones record. I liked it, but it wasn't what I was looking for. I loved the Sex Pistols album. And then I found a live Exploited record, and so fucking good. It was that, and from there we got into, we got turned on to GBH and all of that stuff.
Yeah. That's got to be a game changer for sure, because everything you mentioned, it's like when you talk about the Exploited and GBH, that's like a step up right there.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously, like, because there's Oi, and there's, you guys have a perfect marriage of so many things that are, it's either a little Oi or a little old school hardcore.
Yeah.
And some of the post hardcore.
You think we would draw from every audience and be huge, but people want their shit. It's like when we go out on tour with thrash bands, their audience loves us live, but they're not going to go buy a record.
Well, you guys are as big as a hardcore band can get, right? I guess.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, I know Biohazard was huge in Europe, and they still can, if they ever got back together, they would still draw like crazy.
Right.
Because they were like in a, I don't know if it was top 10, but at least top 20 in Germany. Probably was like top 10.
I mean, hey, you guys, which we'll get to, had some serious stuff happening in the 90s. And, Pete was talking about billboards of Scratch the Surface in
that was really impressive, like landing around that time and being picked up by the record label, and then they load us in the van and go, yeah, we're going to take you to your hotel before you start your tour, and then we're going to drive you around the city. And they were showing us these like floor to ceiling high freaking posters that were saying the legend from New York City, Sick new album, Scratch the Surface. We knew we made it when the first show, right before we came on, the lights dimmed and the place started screaming and people started stage diving before there was any music.
Wow.
I turned to Armand and go, well, there's the MTV crowd.
Yeah.
They were just diving like crazy.
So, yeah, and I want to talk about MTV too, but because that's such an interesting time period of Sick of It All, and that's when I discovered you guys. But before we go there, kind of sticking to your roots here, what are some notable first records? I mean, you already mentioned Killers, but aggressive records, whether it's metal, punk, or hardcore, that had a serious impact on you early on.
God, well, for me, it was the first two Van Halen albums were amazing, and then of course it was my Paranoid, the first Sabbath album, first 4 Sabbath albums.
Yeah.
Those are amazing. And Armine again turned us on to the Bad Brains. And that's just another, like I always say this, those are the 3 big influences on Sick of It All, are Motorhead, Sabbath, and Bad Brains, And then there's other things thrown in there. Definitely Agnostic Front. There's even AC/DC or whatever,
Negative Approach.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, a lot of Negative Approach on my part. I was really influenced by John Brannon and what's his name, Chris from Crumbsuckers. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, Long Island. What's up?
Yeah. Oh, his voice. I used to go see him when he was in Crackdown, and then he joined the Crumbsuckers, and I was just like, he really killed it, man. He was great.
shout out to Richie from Crackdown. I love Richie. He was my local bartender in Long Island when I lived out there.
No way, yeah.
Yeah, every night we'd go play pool and he would be bartending at KD Mix in Huntington. Uh, so if you ever want to go talk about Crackdown, go to KD Mix in Huntington. I think he's still there. Who are some of your favorite vocalists? You talk about it in the book, I know, but for those watching, you can read the book to get more elaborate. There's a lot of great stuff in there. But who are your favorite vocalists?
I mean, back then it was like I said, pre-hardcore. I always wanted to be able to scream like David Lee Roth, and I used to. From the age of 12 on, we would run around the neighborhood screaming Van Halen lyrics out, and I'd be doing the high notes. It was awesome. And then I got hardcore and ruined my voice. No, I was, vocal wise, like I said, it was John from Neighbor Approach and Chris from Crumbsuckers. But I mean, definitely the biggest influence on, there was we called it the big three was, the way Roger was on stage, the way John Joseph was on stage. Jimmy Gestapo is the biggest, I always, you see, I'm jocking him right now.
Yeah. And you talk about Jimmy, you talk about Jimmy in the book about why he's such an important vocalist to you and how inspirational he is.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that because those of us that weren't around in the early days at A7 or to see Jimmy in his prime, and he's still amazing to watch, but I'm sure it was kind of just kind of out there and a little different from what
he doesn't fly around the stage as much, but he's still the most charismatic and engaging frontman you'll ever see. You go see him in a small club or in a big festival, that guy just kills it.
Right.
He can command the audience. It's just I tell the story in the book where we went on an East Coast run with them, and I think the first show was a Wednesday night in Georgia or something like that. And Murphy's Law, first band went on, then Murphy's Law went on, and most of the crowd standing towards the back. And he just got right up on the front of the stage and was just like, this is a hardcore show. I don't care what night of the week it is. And by the halfway through the first song, the whole place was moving. And I'm talking 40, 50-year-old guys going crazy.
That's a skill.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple other vocalists at the end of the book that had an impact on you, which when I read it, I thought was unusual at first. But then as I was kind of preparing for the interview, I've seen you guys a million times. My first hardcore show was a Sick with All show at Roseland with Helmet, which I talked about. Yeah, that was unreal. I never saw anything like that in my life. But I'm coming from Guns N' Roses and Skid Row, and then I'm seeing that, and I'm like, holy shit. Like skinheads and people losing their minds. Let me not get off track here. So you mentioned Freddie Mercury because of how he could command a crowd.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Dee Snider, who, if anybody has watched Twisted Sister or listened to a live album, I can actually hear that influence on you and how you talk to the crowd and how you kind of command them. Like
it's kind of like,
yeah.
He does it kind of like he's your friend, but you're not paying attention. You're an asshole. He kind of like in between it, But yeah, he's great. I mean, I was lucky enough. They did before they signed with anybody. They did a famous show at the Palladium, and my best friend at the time, his older brother, has been seeing Twisted Sister from their earliest days, and he has he's a great photographer. He was, and he goes, hey, they're playing the Palladium. If you guys get $10 each, I'll take you to the show. So I had to beg my mom that I could go to this rock concert, and it was amazing. I think Zebra opened up, and then it was
Zebra. Yeah,
remember that? And then it was Twisted Sister, and just watching him on stage. And the band was awesome. The show was incredible. I couldn't. It's something you can't explain. You had to be there.
Sure.
It was amazing.
I can totally see your whole stage vibe, and how Dee Snider had a little impact on you.
We've had.
Sorry.
I was going to say we've had some through Twitter and at some festivals. Pete has spoken to the guys, and through Twitter. Dee Snider is always, he said, Sick of It All, you're a great band. I'm glad we had some kind of influence on you. How, I don't know, but it was funny.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's really funny, but yeah, Julian from Stillsuit is mentioning something interesting here. Pete mentioned seeing Yes for the first time. The owner of St. Vitus, his favorite band is Yes, and his second favorite band is Zebra. So both of you guys just happened to name two of the owner's favorite bands.
That's all right.
Hilarious.
Yeah, I didn't get to go to Yes. I didn't have any money for a ticket.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure back then, however much it cost compared to today, is still cheap, but was really expensive back then.
Yeah, for a kid.
Now, talk about like the influence that hip hop had on you as well, because I first noticed it when I saw Sick of It All at Deja One in Long Island in Mineola, and at the end of you did Grandmaster Flash at the end of
and the Consumed, we used to do that.
That's right. I thought that was fucking rad. So
yeah.
let's talk about how hip hop had an effect on you.
I don't think there's a little bit of it on the first album in the song Disillusion, but it's just something, growing up in New York, it's just part of being a New Yorker. We liked, we loved metal and punk, but hip hop was a New York thing. And I remember hanging out when we used to hang out in the alley where the 7-inch photo was taken. We'd be listening to like the Dead Kennedys, and then we put on the radio because it was, what's his name? Funk Master Flex or whoever, what's that guy? Red Alert. And we'd be listening to Basketball by Curtis Blow and then Run DMC, and it was a good mix.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were smart. We would have became white rappers and made millions.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, the thing is about New York hardcore is the only hardcore scene. Well, in the early days, at least, everything's different now that everyone has Spotify and they can pick up on different genres. But
yeah,
it was the first hardcore scene with a groove and a bounce to it that was very good,
and a lot of that came from Queens. I mean, look at it. You look at all the Castle Heights scene that was there. A lot of look at Crown of Thorns, all that stuff.
Yeah, or just the way Mackie would play drums. And
exactly. Yeah. New York always has a groove, and that's beautiful. I mean, that's what gave New York hardcore its difference from everything else.
Absolutely. Now, the band has been around for 34 years. I talked to Pete about what some of the first shows were like. One thing I didn't ask him about that I was saving for you is talk about touring with the Bad Brains in 1989, which is talked about the book, but talk about really indulge us here. You're a band for not that long. How do you get the tour? What's what's happening?
How I remember Howie and Steve Martin, who worked at our record label, were pushing for us to get this tour. And it was Leeway and the Bad Brains. And we didn't get the whole tour. We started in Salt Lake City, did the West Coast with them. And they even played a big New York show, but they had some other band called Planet Dread instead of us. Okay. I think they actually paid the Bad Brains management money to be on that New York show.
Wow.
Because they had some kind of label backing or something. But this is a true story. I was working in this carpet factory in the art department, and we made rugs for the richest people in the world. I think the book. And that summer, my uncle from France, my mother's from France, and I have a whole half a family that's French and Italian. My uncle goes, I need help on the farm. Why don't you send Pete and Lou to live here in the summer? They can work 4 days a week on my farm. I have an apartment in Paris. They can live the next 3, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Paris. And he goes, what young men wouldn't want to live in Paris?
Right.
So oh my God, I'm going to quit my job and go to Paris and go work on a farm, And then, but then Howie goes, hey, the Bad Brains wants you to do the tour. So here I am sitting do I go to Paris? do I,
Right.
And personally, it was a no-brainer. For my dad, it was the wrong decision. He was like, you quit your job. You're not even going to go to work somewhere. You're going to go tour for nothing,
Unbelievable.
My way to explain to him was like, Dad, think of yourself. If you had a band and Elvis asked you to tour with him, that's what it was like for me. And then he kind of understood then. Yeah.
Um, you were not a band for long when that happened.
No, maybe that was what, 89. So 3 years.
3 years, okay. And what's it like going on? I don't know if is that Eye Against Eye or is that Quickness?
That was Quickness. Yeah.
Okay, so Mackey's playing with drums for him, right?
No, Earl was back in then. It was
Earl
like
was
Mackie
back
did, and then they got Earl right back in.
What was it like being on the road with those guys? If you could kind of tell us some road stories for a second.
I remember the first day we pull up in Salt Lake and they're already sound checking. And, we just walk in and HR was trying something new with a trumpet, and the roadie saw us all. We're all just hanging out watching. He was like, "You guys can't watch." He's, I guess because he was just trying something new.
Yeah, yeah.
We always thought it was funny watching it. The Bad Brains walk around smoking giant, like, big spliffs, and their roadies like rolling. They had like the weed guy. But it was good. It was fun. The best thing was the shows every night, man. That first show was amazing for every band. Even, Leeway, it was weird. We had more people coming to see us through the Revelation 7-inch than Leeway had going to see, Leeway was the middle band. Right. But the Salt Lake City shows were just from the get-go nonstop insanity. And when the Bad Brains went on, HR doing the backflip every night. Oh, incredible.
There's a great picture of you and Eddie and from Leeway and HR in the book, which is just an unbelievable photo of like three just seriously legendary vocalists in a picture together. I'll move on from that because I have so many other questions more related to the band. But did you spend that much time with HR hanging out on the road?
Not really. It was weird. They got into after the Salt Lake City shows. There was 2 shows in Salt Lake. I forget, we were heading to Southern California, and HR got into an argument with Earl. And I remember the bus was in front of us, and it pulls to the side of the road. Like, to me, if I remember correctly, it looked like the middle of nowhere, like a desert. And HR, they didn't even stop. They slowed down. He just jumped out and went walking.
Wow.
But the next gas station, we talked to our friend Chippy Love, who was roading for him. And we go, what the hell happened? Should we wait here? Do you want us to wait for him? He's like, he'll make it to the show. We go to the next show, and we're hanging out talking. It was cool because Dr. No went to bat for us for this college was like, oh, we don't have time for Sick of It All to play. We have there's some big local band, I don't even remember who they were, who were supposed to go on before instead of us. And Dr. No said, like, look, if you don't let Sick of It All play, the Bad Brains aren't going to play. And the promoter out. He was all right, but they go as soon as the doors open. We didn't care. We went on and had a great set, But so we're waiting there with Dr. No, like, is he going to make it? What's going to happen if he doesn't show up? And he just shrugged his shoulders. And then it's like a movie. The door kicks open. Here comes HR with 2 hippie girls who he met and gave him a ride all the way to the West Coast.
Holy shit. That's unbelievable. I had HR on the show a couple of weeks ago.
No way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. So, and there's a great song that you guys wrote on your last record, Crazy White Boy Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a tribute to them. I think you should all check that out. What's the Alleyway, crew? When you guys did that re-release later on, is that the same Alleyway from back in the day? Still there?
Yep. We went to do the photo shoot, and I guess school was on. I remember it. And the gates where we took the photo, in the original photo, they're open. And then we were taking photos in front of it was shut. And a janitor just happens to walk out, and he looks at us, and then he just turned to start walking away. And the photographer runs over, and he goes like, hey, these guys were in a band, and like, decades ago, they took their first album, their 7-inch picture in this alley. They used to live down the street. Do you think you can unlock the gates for us? And the guy goes, he shows him the original picture, and the guy goes, yeah, of course. And he goes,
wow.
No. It was cool.
Got lucky. Where is the Alleyway exactly for those of us in New York?
Sanford Avenue, and I think it's either 147th or 149th Street. 147th and Sanford Avenue. It's a high school, and the alley is a side entrance into the schoolyard. And it would be like us in the alley. Then there would be the guys who loved hip hop at the basketball courts. And then the inner courtyard was where some metalheads used to hang out, but not very often. They would go there every once in a while.
Okay.
Street for like 10, 15 years.
I love that it's still there, man. That's a piece of history. And it's iconic, just like the dragon. Where did the dragon come from? Who came up with that?
The original dragon was by Greg Irons, a tattoo artist. And our friend Duck was going into the Marines, and he wanted to get a tattoo to commemorate all of us because we all used to hang out when we were dubbed the Alleyway Crew by Tom Carroll from Straight Ahead, just called us.
Okay.
And then so Duck got it. A bunch of us all got it, but we all had it. We changed it from Greg Irons' original design. And it was just a photo of my tattoo in the first 7-inch, and it got associated with Sick of It All. You know?
Right.
On that Bad Brains tour, playing the country club in LA, and these total cholos coming up to us as we're packing our van, you know, leeway's on. And we're like, why are these guys leaving the show? You know, it's just, and they walk up to this old LA, yo, you from the Alleyway Crew? That's badass. I was like, you know this.
So funny, man. And then the name of the band. Who came up with the name of the band?
Pete says it was. I thought all of us. It was me, Pete, and the original the guy who played drums for one show, Dave, and we were all sitting there. And I think either Pete or me, I can't remember who, said, let's call it Sick of It All. And then, but Dave wanted to call it Sick of All and use the letters SOA. But I said, there's already SOA. You know, there was, I forget the name of the band, but it was a pretty big punk hardcore band at the time called SOA.
Oh, yeah, it was Henry Rollins' band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah, on Discord, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's Henry Rollins. So I can't remember that. But I said, nah, man, it's got to be Sick of It All. So.
Okay, that's awesome. I mean, fuck, everything you guys have done, just for whatever reason, it sounds like it's, I don't know how much thought was put into it, but like, it's all iconic, it's all evergreen, it all is still like, you know, there's a lot of bands that did stuff that like got cheesy or went out of style, but like everything from the logo to the lyrics to just everything has remained relevant and cool, which is cool. I love hearing about that. The backstory of everything.
It was like a no-brainer to us. It was just stuff that we felt, you know.
Yeah.
Just off the cuff.
At what point? And I asked Pete this too. Like, it's cool to get both your feedbacks on this. But like, obviously, the band was getting pretty big in the '90s, and you were getting signed to bigger labels because, in effect, Combat, Relativity, West. What can you? At what point did you realize the band was making a name for itself outside of New York? And then let's get into like what it was like once things start to really elevate for you.
The early days, it was weird for us, like being asked, hey, you want to come down to DC and play the Safari Club or the 930 Club? And, you know, but then we started getting letters, like handwritten letters back then from the Philippines. I was like, how did, you know, through tape traders. This is before the internet. And one of the things that really sticks out in my mind is I remember I still lived at my parents' house. So that it was only the 7-inch out. And I'm sitting there. It's a Saturday. I was working on something in the basement for my dad. And I hear the doorbell ring. My dad calls me upstairs. And there's this guy and girl from Holland. They found the address in one of our either demo. I think it was in the demo that they had. They had the 7-inch and they had the demo, and they found my parents' address, which was on the original demos.
Unbelievable.
Took a train from New York to Queens and walked from the subway, which is a good 2 miles, and found my parents' house and rang the bell. And I was like, wow, people know something.
That's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah.
Well, because you could, like, all the bands had addresses on their records, man.
Yeah. You know, you put your demo out and it's like, here, write to me here, or, you know.
So funny. I don't want to go off too much on a tangent, but back then when there were addresses on albums, remember Equal Vision Records had their address on there. And like a buddy of mine who was just getting into hardcore from Long Island, was like, "Oh, we should go to Equal Vision Records and try to get more bands like this." It was like a shelter record, and he goes and it's like a fucking apartment in the Lower East Side.
Yeah,
A
it was
bunch of Harry Krishnas walking
like
around.
12th Street or something, right?
Yeah. It's fucking hilarious.
The funny thing about that is, I think it was the Venom Bloodlust single. Our friend Vic, who played bass in Reagan Youth, we used to call him Vic Venom because he was the first guy we knew into Venom. He looks at the thing, goes, "There's a phone number on the back of this." He goes, "I'm going to call it." So he calls the number, and this old lady actually goes, "Yeah, I want to speak to Cronus." And she goes, "Oh, you mean Conrad? He's around the corner at the recording studio. Who is this?"
Holy shit.
He goes, "I'm just a fan from America. I, just wanted to call him up." And she goes, "Oh, hold on." His mother runs around the corner, gets Cronus from a Venom recording, and goes in and talks to our friend Vic.
Oh my God.
So check out those back of records and call those numbers.
That's unreal, man. Many hardcore bands, especially in New York, experimented during the 90s, and that was the after crossover. Now we're getting into like Quicksand and Orange Nine and the post-hardcore thing. A lot of those bands were getting signed by majors. They were getting huge. You were the one band, maybe with the exception of Civ later on, and H2O later on, but really it was you guys first that managed to get as popular, if not more popular than some of the bands I mentioned. All great bands, but staying true to your sound. So can you talk about that a little bit? Like, you weren't influenced by trends,
No. I mean, plus I couldn't sing like Walter either. So. No, I mean, we were seen as, the second or third or whatever generation of hardcore. And when the more post-hardcore sound, like you said, Quicksand and Into Another and all that. But albums like Scratch the Surface were so different from our first album, at least in our eyes, that I think we did a tour that was Quicksand, us, and Orange Nine. And that was a fucking amazing tour for us,
Is that Warped Tour or?
No, we did the first Warped Tour like that, but Quicksand, us, and Orange Nine did a short run where I remember going up to upstate and then cutting out west. I remember playing Lawrence, Kansas with that lineup too, and it was amazing.
That is an unbelievable tour.
Yeah, and we lucked out a lot of things like that. We got like Helmet took us out at least twice on a couple of.
That's where I saw you guys for the first time. Is Roseland.
Roseland, that was a great show. I remember being downstairs in the dressing room, about ready to go on, and Toby from H2O comes running by. He goes like, "Oh my God, Liv Tyler's here to see your band."
Holy
It wasn't
shit.
a very good Toby imitation, but it was close.
We got to get him on the show soon. I love that. He was your roadie.
Yeah, he worked for.
This is Toby from H2O for those who don't know.
Yeah, Toby from H2O, and it was amazing because Liv Tyler was there to see Helmet. She saw us, and her sister Mia was there. And later on, we became friends with Mia through, social media. Haven't heard from her in a long, long time, but it was nice that, and it was funny because I didn't put two and two together. Her name, Mia, she goes, "Hey, are you guys in town one night?" And I was like, "Yeah, but, she goes, "You want to come out and see a band?" And I was like, "Nah, that's cool." It turned out she was trying to take us to see Aerosmith, but I was.
Oh my God. How fucking crazy, man. Scratch the Surface was the beginning of some serious exposure. Obviously, there was the Helmet tour. There was the episode of Beavis and Butthead where they had Step Down being played, and you were on Headbangers Ball pretty often. Now, Step Down is a classic anthem, and the video is like such a great tutorial into the world of hardcore and punk. Can you talk about writing the lyrics to that song and what that song did for your career?
It's funny. I wrote the whole original lyrics, and Craig didn't like them. They're pretty much the same lyrics that are there. Okay. But Craig didn't like some of the lines I had in it. He was like, "This is he was still tough then,
So, he was coming out of Agnostic Front.
Yeah. So our mind goes, "I have an idea," and he came up with the whole concept, Step Down. the words and then he took what I wrote and rewrote it. And it's funny because that was another song. There were a couple on especially the second album, but there was a couple on this album. It was a joke. It was like, I remember the very first time we played, Craig, Ernie was on tour with us with Black Train Jack, I think. And him and Craig, we were doing sound check, and Ernie sat behind the drums, and Craig goes, let's write an Oi song. And he came up with that's when he came up with the riff for Step Down.
So Craig came up with the riff.
Yeah. And then I think Pete wrote the song. Yeah, Pete wrote the song off of that. And Armine rewrote the lyrics, and it just it all came together. It was like our version of it. Because we did love Oi. I loved the Sham 69,
Right.
So good. But, we didn't sit there and think. And I remember when we were writing stuff for Scratch the Surface, we'd have friends come up. We used to rehearse in Chinatown, and I wish we still had this place. It was at the top floor of a sweatshop, and it was us and the Rollins band were the only two that used it at different times.
Wow.
And I remember friends would come up and watch the songs, and they would all look at us and go like, why are you guys still playing fast? Why are you playing like an Oi song? Everything's old groove like Biohazard now. And we're like, we just, Biohazard and Quicksand. And we were just like, this is just the kind of shit we like to write,
It's the New York sound too.
Yeah.
And also, I should have mentioned earlier, going off on tangent, but that hip hop delivery and the vocals and the groove really came out in some of the songs on Scratch the Surface, but also the song Just Look Around, very hip hop.
Yeah.
How did you guys get in touch with KRS-One to do any of that, the intro?
That was just dumb luck. It was my older brother's girlfriend at the time was working in a studio, and she came over with the house one night, and I go, oh, who's in your studio this week? And she goes, you would know him. His name's KRS-One. I call him Chris. And I was like, oh, I go, oh, Boogie Down Production. She's like, what? And I she couldn't believe that I knew who he was. So she goes back to work the next day and tells him that her boyfriend's little brothers are in a punk band and they love your music. So he goes, I got to meet these kids. And he invited us down to the studio. And that was as simple as that. And we were there. Armand asked him, we asked him if he could do do an intro for us. And he did it. He goes, this is, KRS-One, sick of it all, blah, blah, blah. And then Armand goes, we're all like, that's amazing. That's great. Because he's not asking for it. And Armand goes, could you say Blastmaster? And he was like, he looks at us like, I just gave you the shit for free and you want more? Then he goes, you want the old school shit. And Armand,
and you got him again to do the second one.
Yeah, he was cool. That was the 20th anniversary or 25th anniversary album. I don't know. I think it was 25th. And we said, if we're going to re-record these songs, we have to have KRS-One do an updated version. And we finally got through to him, and he's, again, cool as hell. This guy gets paid God knows what to do all these lectures and guest appearances. He goes, what would you need? He goes, send me 3 XXX shirts, and that's it.
Wow, that's fucking great, man. Hell yeah. I love that. I have this, we're coming at the home stretch. We have about 8 minutes left, so I'm going to try to get through this before we get kicked off by Instagram. And that's what happens. It just kicks you off. But everybody watching, thanks for watching. And if you want to watch all 2 hours of this, it's going to end up on the Revolver Magazine YouTube channel in the next week or so. And you can watch it here as part 1 and part 2 on the St. Vitus Instagram. And we got a lot of people watching from all over the place, so I really appreciate that. I always had this sort of idea that the reason why the opening bands for a lot of the tours that you would go on was so diverse, like Snapcase and Hot Water Music and Indecision, and I'm sure since then it's been even more. But I always, for some reason, assumed that it was you. It seems like you have a very diverse music taste. That you had something to do with that. Is that fair to say?
I like to mix it up. I would always find the bands that excited me, and like Snapcase. But then when we're taking out Snapcase, why can't we take out Good Riddance? So we did a tour where it was, I believe we did Snapcase and Good Riddance, and then another tour was Strife and AFI.
Oh yeah.
I want to just keep it like Sick of It All and 5 Sick of It All clone bands, you know. And
Right.
I think it accumulated in my favorite tour, probably of all time. There's a couple up there, you know, like with us in the Dropkicks in the early days. But my favorite one is 99, Sick of It All, AFI, Hot War Music, Indecision.
Yeah.
Bands first, but we all got along so well because we would sit there after the show and talk about, like, you know, Minor Threat, or we talk about, you know, just we all had this similar backgrounds, you know.
Hell yeah. We just had Artie from, you know,
I saw that. I can't
did
wait.
you watch that?
I didn't see it, but I can't wait to watch it. Artie's one of my favorites. When he was on tour with us and in the city, oh, he was amazing.
Fucking hilarious. The guy's ridiculous.
So smart, funny as hell, and a great.
Yeah, there are things that I can't talk about that are in regards. I'm from Long Island, so all the first shows that I went to were all the owners of St. Vitus are from Long Island, so it's like kind of a common theme. We all know Artie, and he's a crazy maniac. But anyways, this is about you guys. So I told this to Pete. I've actually known almost all the members of Sick of It All except for you and your brother.
Oh, yeah.
I know Richie for a very long time, and more recently Armand, because he hangs out at my friend's beer shop. So my question here is like, Craig taught me how to box one time. That was fun. But so Craig we know is really into boxing. Pete seems to be into working out a lot, and Armand is really into craft beer. What is Lou into? What are you into when you're not in, you know, doing band stuff?
Sleeping. I like sleeping.
Sleeping.
No, I'm kidding. I like a lot of books and comics and movies. I like that stuff. I'm really into. I miss that the movies are shut, because that was me and my daughter once a week would head to the movie theater and just, you know, get the popcorn and everything and just go see some crazy movie. But I really love comics and books, like, you know, more of the horror books and stuff like that.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, I'm a big Marvel and DC guy, watching all that shit.
Yeah.
Back in the day, collecting.
Yeah.
There was something that that's awesome. That's the stuff that I want to know, because also in the book, guys, if you pick up the book, which we're going to give a plug again, congrats to all of you, and congrats to Howie Abrams, and thank you to him for hooking this up. It's a great book, and you can kind of delve more into everyone's lives and things we're talking about here, what it was really like. So I just thought it'd be cool to talk about some of your personal things that you do in your time. Now, we were talking about how you also have a very diverse taste in music. What are some of the records or bands that you're listening to during quarantine? What are some things?
God, what have I been listening to? I just usually, I know it sucks because I'm a musician, but I go on Spotify and play a lot of different things. I mean, there's so much good stuff out. That's the easy access, you know. I mean, I like that band Candy's new record.
Great band.
I just did a playlist for Revelation. If you go to Revelation on Instagram, Revelation Records, mine's the newest playlist that they have. So go there and like it, so I have more likes than everybody else. No,
thank you for mentioning that. Yeah,
but it's got it's got a whole bunch of different stuff that I listen to. You know, like it's got the band Gloss that they broke up, unfortunately, but their demo from a couple of years ago, still one of the rawest things around. My friend Tim, who used to be an ensign, has a new band called Fuck It, I Quit, which is very up my alley, like Discharge kind of style, you know. And then just a whole bunch of different stuff going on.
You can actually, guys, I thank you for mentioning that. There's the playlist, the Revelation Records playlist that Lou was just mentioning that he made, that's new and up right now. And it's a great photo of you from back in the day that they used.
That was I think I was high at the beach, but
we were hoping for the rat tail. We didn't get the rat tail. But
that's somewhere in the house. I'll find it.
No, you don't. Do you
Yeah,
really?
I think I got a piece of it like about that big left.
Holy shit, that's hilarious.
But
yeah, but you can order the book from Revelation along with the T-shirt with the dragon and the Revelation logo kind of merged together, or you can order it from Generation Records. So
yeah,
either way, just support the scene, support hardcore, support record stores and labels and bands. Everyone needs it. I'm coming down to the last 2 minutes. I'll get to final comments and shout outs, but just before we do that, dude, how do you fucking get up every night and sing like that? Do you have warm ups and things that you do backstage?
Yeah, now I have to. When I was younger, it was no big deal, but now definitely. I mean, I've been trying to record this one more song I have left to record, and it starts out in this screaming note. And I haven't been able to hit it in the months I've been trying because my voice, the way I am, I have to constantly sing, or else it's like any muscle, it just gets weak. And
Yeah.
I haven't been singing since November, so.
God damn, man. But no, but it's because it's like you when you address the audience, it's still the same voice that you sing in.
Yeah.
I'm like, how does he fucking do that for like
I like
an
a cook.
hour and a half? Lots of practice.
Yep.
Well, like I said, we're gonna get kicked off. So I do you have any final shout outs or
Just want to thank everybody for getting the book, and thank you. I really want to thank Howie for putting it all together. You know, it's funny because like he's still, you know, he's always believed and sick of it all, you know, and he's one of those guys who doesn't give you lip service. You know, he believes you. He fucking, you know, tries to always further your career or help you out whenever he can. And
he's one of the best dudes, dudes out there. And yes, thank you to Howie. Thank you to you and your brother Pete. And I hope that we get to see you out on the road eventually. And in the meantime, everybody read the book and fucking blast all the Sick of It All records, because everything sucks right now. And that shit will get you through the times. And we need that kind of inspiration. Thank you for inspiration, man. We really appreciate it. Awesome. All right. Well, hopefully we'll see you around, my friend.
I will.
Peace out.
See you, man. Take care.
Take care. Guys, that was awesome. Thank you so much. And again, sorry for that first half. I feel so bad that I was having a hard time with Pete. We did our best. It was really a struggle because a lot of the call and responses were just not coming through. So anyway, pick up the book, support venues like St. Vitus, support places like Generation Records, support labels like Revelation Records, and support bands like Sick of It All. And thank you to everybody for tuning in to Age of Quarantine every night, Monday through Friday at 8 o'clock. We have a special episode on Sunday with Richie Birkenhead from Into Another and Underdog. So join us and stay safe and don't be dicks to each other and stand up against the man. Peace out.